Hi everyone. So today we're going to do a deep dive into custom metrics for evaluating AI agents. So specifically, we're going to focus on the different types of metrics that you can build and cover how to assess parts of an MLflow trace. Before we start, let's set the scene. So Maria, can you start by explaining why we should care about custom metrics?
Yes, so when you're building an AI agent, any agent really, like a chatbot, a virtual assistant, any kind of conversational AI, you need ways to evaluate how it is performing. And of course, there are the standard metrics like accuracy or response time, but those alone don't capture everything that the agent is doing. So this is where custom metrics come in, where they allow you to evaluate your agents in specific criteria based on your needs. And you can think of them as like a custom built benchmark instead of just a general KPI that you are tracking.
Awesome. So I can see here pass-fail metrics. So maybe we can start with that. So which are some of the simplest but really effective custom metrics you can create? Can you explain about this?
Yeah, so as the name suggests, so pass and fail metrics is a result that actually shows if a condition is met or it is not met. It's a binary outcome, and essentially it answers the question, did this pass our test or it did not? It is a very straightforward test, so that's why it's usually used, for example, when you want to see if a task was completed successfully or not.
And then we have numeric metrics. So they allow you to measure quantitative aspects of your agents.
Yes, think of them like integers or floats, and these are really flexible because you can assess any kind of performance you want. So you can measure like task completion time or how many steps your agent hit in order to create an answer. And it's not just a yes or no, it's just a number now that it can be float or integer.
Okay. And finally, Boolean metrics. So a bit like pass-fail metrics, right? But slightly different.
Yes, so the difference here is that it's not pass and fail exactly. It's actually true or false. So this metric will return true if the condition was met or false if it was not met. So again, logical checks that don't require any numerical output. These Boolean checks are usually ideal where you need to track the presence or an absence of a condition.
Okay, and so now what are the assertions over traces?
This is really interesting. So think of them as a way to define expected behavior in your custom metrics. So again, when you are evaluating your agent, so what it does is you can set expectations on what the agent should do and then check if these expectations were met or not met during the evaluation process. So it helps you check if your agent is doing what it was expected to do before it is too late.
Awesome. And so when it fails, when the assertion fails, what happens then?
Yeah, so we'll show you in the demo exactly how it looks like, but when the assertion fails, then this means that because we are tracing everything, if it's true or false are actually logged, it raises an exception, and this can be seen on the trace, as well as, in the UI, when it says that this row failed for specific reasons, you can see the custom metrics and if it failed or not failed.
Got it. So if I understand correctly, assertions are like a way to fail fast so that you know very quickly something's wrong with my agent, and basically you don't need to wait until the end of your evaluation process to know that there's an issue. You just fail very quickly.
Yes, and it's really easy to trace now things that are happening inside a multi-turn or multi-step agent.
Awesome. Should we jump into the demo?
So let's go through the different custom metrics that we just explained. And let's start with the pass and fail since it's the simplest. So what we have here is we're going to define two safety metrics called profanity and rudeness. And let's see how you can do that. So you have, again, we always start with our evaluation dataset. And in this case, it's a mock example. So it's as simple just to see how the custom metrics are working. But let's start with this. So we have like the request is good morning. The expected response is good morning to you too, or good afternoon, and then blah, 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 blah. So what we want to define is two metrics, that one is the safety and profanity, and the other one is safety and rudeness. So how do you define these metrics is, you have to use this decorator and then the metric decorator, and this shows that this is a metric that we need to evaluate on, and we're gonna pass it as in the evaluation metrics when we perform the run for this specific agent. And then you have to define what this is doing exactly. So what it does is you have to pass the specific guidelines, as in this specific metrics is for the response must not use, profanity or swear, and it should be not a language that is very offensive. And what we do is we're going to take the request, we're going to pass it to a specific judge that makes sure that the request adheres to these specific guidelines. So this is how it works. So we get the request, we use another judge in this case to see if the response of the agent matches the guidelines we are passing here.
So here the judge, is it the Databricks managed judges, like LLM judges, that are part of the evaluation framework?
Yes, so this is one of Databricks judges.
So we just tailor them a bit to...
So in this case, we're building 100% our own judge, and we are saying, okay, given the request and the response you are getting, and given that I want to understand if the response has any profanity or swear or any offensive language, tell me if this is true or false. Tell me if this passes or not passes the test in this case, actually. And in order to know, though, if it passes or not passes, who is going to judge this? In this case, we're using another judge. And what it does is it takes a request and it tries to see if the rules you defined matches the request.
Makes sense.
And the same you do for the other metric. In this case, is the rudeness, and the guideline is the response must not be rude. And then we start a new run, and we hit the MLflow as always evaluate function. And we are using the Databricks agents to evaluate. And then here we are passing all the extra metrics of safety, profanity, and safety rudeness. So
those are the functions we just defined.
Exactly. So these ones are the functions we just defined. So this is the idea in general, how you create and define the metrics and how do you pass them. But let's see how they are being seen. Okay.
Yes.
So here we have the two evaluation examples we saw before, and you can see here that this is the two custom metrics we created. And if we go through our examples, you'll see that if you remember, if we go back to see what example was, this one was good morning. The response was, here we go again with you and greetings. This seems a little bit of a sarcastic comment. So it fails both of the tests, both of the in the rudeness and the profanity, saying that, this the guideline states that the response must not be rude. It's a little bit sarcastic, and explains why it failed given the guidelines we gave. So this you see in here that it answers as fail or not fail or pass, and given this is the custom metrics we defined before, right? So the next one what we can discuss is the float metric, and here is where we're going to define a metric that is an integer or a Boolean. Again, we are going to go through our evaluation dataset. In this case, we have, again, the same kind of request and response, but also an expected response marked in our evaluation dataset. What we're going to do in this example to calculate this numeric metric is we're going to create a metric that what it does is it captures the similarity between the response that we got from our agent and the expected response we should have had. Okay? Yeah, we are calculating a similarity between the two, and what we want to return is basically this ratio. So, similar way, we have defined the metric, we are passing it through our evaluation function, we're passing it here in the extra metrics, and that is it.
For this, you need to know the ground truth.
Bravo, because we are comparing against our ground truth. In this case, we have good morning, and the answer is good morning to you. And what we were expecting was hello and good morning to you. And this is our score, how similar was the response versus against the expected output. Whereas in the other one, which was a little bit different, we see that we had good morning. The answer was I am an LLM, irrelevant answer. Whereas the expected answer was this. You see a much lower score in this case. So this is how you define the numerical one.
And then you get an average. That's really
Bravo. Now let's see the Boolean ones. So again, it's a little bit similar to pass and fail, but let's go through it. So in this case, we want to see if the word, like the word LLM, was mentioned in the response. Okay, is it mentioned true? Was not mentioned or was not in the response? False. So we defined another metric now, and we say, given the response, check if LLM was in the response. So this will return true if the LLM word was in the response, false if it was not.
nice.
Again, the same way, we pass it through our extra metrics, and we check the results. So again, good morning. The answer was good morning to you too. So in this case, as you can see, our custom metrics was failed because it didn't pass. It was a false statement, so it didn't pass. Whereas on the other side, in the response here, we actually had the LLM in the answer, which is what exactly this custom metric is capturing.
Awesome.
Another interesting thing is that in cases where you want to pass some custom expected information to your evaluation metric, how can you do that? Let's go through the example to show you what I mean exactly here. So we're going to define again the evaluation metric, but here you're going to say something different. So we're getting the request, we're getting the response, but also we are getting some extra expected data that we need in order to judge if this response was correct or not correct, if it failed or did not fail. So again, here we have custom metrics, which is the max and min length of the answer. So let's see. We define these metrics that takes the request, takes the response and the custom expected data and says, okay, if the length of the response is in between min and max, then okay. If not, flag it. Again, the same way as we've learned, we pass it into the extra metrics and we hit the evaluate results function. So in this case, both of them have passed because they are in between the custom metrics response. So they're in between 3 and 10 characters. Sounds good. And this is how you pass extra arguments to the metrics to validate.
You changed the screen back.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the interesting thing with this that we're going to show later is that you can grab these things from your MLflow traces. So keep that in mind. So we're going to say it later. The other thing I want to show you is that instead, let's say that you want to calculate 10, 15 metrics, but are along the same kind of path, let's say. You don't need to define 100 different separate metric functions. What you can do is, in this case, we are evaluating a phrase if it has some specific characters inside. So in this case, I have created just one function that is called punctuation, but also you could have created 3 separate ones for exclamation, one for period, and etc. You see where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. Instead of building many separate ones, you can build one and return an assessment as a type, which is a more complicated type, not a Boolean, numeric, or pass or not pass. So you can do that as well and wrap many similar type of assessments into one. Again, the same way you pass it to the extra metrics, and then let's see how this looks like. So again, they are separated. They are seen as 3 different evaluation metrics, and we are flagging each one against each of the evaluation metrics, even though you log them as one metric with 3 different kind of assessments inside.
Amazing.
Okay, and now I want to show you what I said before about how you can use the traces to pass information to your metric. So in this case, we're going to show a little bit how you will build a very small agent just to test the whole thing. So what we're going to have here is we're going to start from here, which is our agent. It's a question answer agent. It takes a user query, return the request type, gives a response. This is the main functionality. But in here, we're going and hitting the classify question answer function, which is this one. And what does this do? There is the system prompt that takes the question and then has to return these three things: question, statement, unknown. So given the question, it has to say return question if the request is formed as a question, even though the punctuation may be wrong. Return statement if the request is a statement, even if the punctuation is wrong. Return unknown if nothing of this is true.
Makes sense.
And that is it. Okay, and then we just hit this chain mainly. Our evaluation set here looks like the request is this is a question. And this is a statement though, because this is not a question. This is what we're saying. This is the request type should have been a statement. And here, what is the date? And the request type is a question. So let's go and define the metric. So the metric takes into account the request, the trace from the MLflow trace, and the custom expected argument that we are passing here. Okay, see here that we are passing the custom expected, what we were expecting to be a question or a statement. So what we are doing here is we're saying, take all our traces and see if the classification output that mainly hits this thing here is same as the expected, custom expected.
Oh, okay.
Pass or not pass, you see? But I need to go and check my traces, and now I'm tracing here, right? And I'm gonna go and map this to my custom expected arguments. So let's see how this looks like. So this is a question. This didn't pass because it thought this is a question. The model answered. This question is the input, okay? The model answered the request is a question, but that was a statement. So what it did is it took this response, the answer from the custom expected, and it calculated that, okay, this is a failed assessment, whereas here is passing because it's actually a question, and this maps to what the response from the agent was. Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And then I think the most interesting part here is this. So how can you use custom metrics to see if the tools the agent is using are actually correct or make sense? So think of an agent that has access to multiple tools, and one of the problems we have is how can we make sure that actually the agent hit the right tools it should have hit, right? Okay, so let's see how we can do that. We are going to define some tools in this case, which is going to be two tools like addition and multiplication of two numbers. That is it. We're going to define these tools. And then we're going to create an agent that mainly answers given the tools that we had above. So this is just to create the tools, and we're passing the agent to the tool, and then we're just hitting the chain. Now, we're going to show you two approaches. The first one is a little bit more hard, more, let's say, aggressive in the sense that what it does is, again, first we're defining the evaluation data set. The request is what is 3 times 12. The expected response is 36. And of course, the custom expected is that the agent needs to go and hit the multiply tool. Okay.
Makes sense.
Whereas if it's 3 plus 12, the expected answer is this, and the agent needs to go and hit the add tool. Now, this is just going to go and check if our agent if the first tool the agent hit matches the expected tool. So what we're going to do is we're defining again our metric, again a custom metric, and it's called the isCorrect tool. It takes into account the tool call and the custom expected that we defined into the evaluation dataset. And then if the tool name that was first called matches the expected tool name, then all good. If not, not pass. Again, we are passing it in the extra metrics, and we are hitting the evaluation dataset. So in this case, let's see. So this one was the addition. So it says that is correct tool. So the tool that was hit was actually the correct tool. And the same for the multiplication. So if you see here, this is the multiplication. The tool that was hit was multiply. So everything passed. Yeah?
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to show you is a little bit extra step from that, which is what I'm going to do is I am going to go and collect all my available tools from the tracing. And instead of just match it to the custom expected, because this means that in my evaluation data set, I have to go and build all of these things like question, answer, custom expected tool. And sometimes I may not know that, or that requires a lot of work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to collect all my tools. Again, I'm going to do this thing that I'm going to have all my tools for my tracing. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to hit a judge and say, given the tool choice, did it actually make sense? So you judged it.
Yeah, so it's LLM judge
Yeah,
approach.
exactly. Bravo. Exactly. So we are again defining the metrics. We are gathering all the tools from the extract all the tools from the trace. And then we are saying, okay, given the request, given the response, which is the tool choice, make sure that the selected tool is a reasonable tool to have been chosen. I'm passing it to my extra metrics and I'm hitting the evaluation function.
Nice. So we do the LLM judge approach, but we log it as a metric.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And then you see it here, guideline adherence, true and false. I mean, it's both true in this case. So what we have is, this is an addition. The custom expected was that we don't really care in this case. But here you should be able to see that the name of the tool was add, that was hit. So this passes the evaluation given what the judge says. And with that, we showed all the custom metrics. And also, I think for me, the most interesting is this. How do you pass your traces into your custom metric? And how can you actually understand which tool was used, when, and how?
Amazing. So we saw a lot of metrics, and so more of an open-ended question now. How do you go about designing these custom metrics? So what's the methodology that you'd recommend?
The first thing is you have to understand what are you building and what is the intention for this agent. And based on that, then you can start designing your own metrics because you have to answer questions, right? What specific task or behavior I need to evaluate. And then I'm focusing on speed, on performance, or what is it that I'm trying to measure here. Then how can I measure the performance of this behavior? So how can we quantify that? Because this is not easy. For example, if we want to measure the quality of a response in a conversation, then we may want to track things like relevance, like fluency, helpfulness. There are a lot of things that are very business specific and app specific. So it's not the same for everybody. And then the other thing is like how will the metric align with the real world use case? Like you have to have always the end user in mind to make sure that whatever you're evaluating actually is what they care and they need. Otherwise, it will never pass the evaluation stage. It will never go to production if it doesn't matches what the end user needs to see.
Makes sense. And so, yeah, designing those custom metrics, not an easy task. So what do you think the challenges can be that, what should people watch out for?
Yeah, I think sometimes we're trying to evaluate some things that are really subjective, like if an answer was creative enough or if it will match the user satisfaction. But these are important to consider, especially in systems like conversational agents where human-like interaction are really a key. So this is one challenge, some things that we cannot really put a number or it's not really easy to evaluate because it's really subjective. And the other one is we can make these judges as specific to a task as we can. So this adds a lot of complexity. So we will see soon this trade-off between simple versus complex. Where are we going? We have to find a really nice balance there.
Awesome.